I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here we are. My name is Jake, and I used to think my life was pretty great. I was married to Emily, a woman who everyone thought was perfection personified. We were that couple that friends envied, young, successful, and seemingly in love. We had a nice home, a couple of dogs, and a lifestyle that made us the envy of our social circle. But lately, things had started to feel off, and it wasn't just the usual marital bumps. I began to notice changes in Emily's behavior. Little things at first. She was spending more time on her phone, often getting texts late at night, and her late-night work meetings became more frequent. At first, I brushed it off. She had her job as a marketing manager for a fashion brand, so I figured she was just swamped with deadlines. But then there were the small lies. I caught her in a few when I asked about where she'd been or why she had suddenly started to dress differently, more revealing and high fashion, which was odd for her. One night, I returned home early from work. I walked into our home and heard her talking on the phone in the bedroom. Her voice sounded flirtatious, which was confusing. I stood quietly, listening, and I heard her say something that turned my stomach. She mentioned meeting Tom for drinks and how they couldn't wait to see each other again. My heart sank. Who the hell was Tom? The next few days were a blur of anxiety and suspicion. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I decided to dig a little deeper. I won't lie, it felt like I was becoming a private investigator. I went through her emails and messages while she was out one afternoon, and it didn't take long to discover the truth. Emily had been having an affair with a high-end fashion designer named Richard. My heart raced as I read their exchanges, flirty messages, plans to meet, and even explicit discussions about their special moments. When she walked in that day, I was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion. I confronted her right there in the living room. "So, how's it going with Richard?" I spat, my voice shaking with rage. The look on her face was priceless: shock, disbelief, and then a quick mask of defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, crossing her arms and rolling her eyes. It was the classic defensive tactic. I could sense her trying to twist the narrative. "Jake, you're being ridiculous. I'm working hard, you know that." But I wasn't having any of her bullshit anymore. I threw her phone on the coffee table, the messages still open on the screen. "Is this your version of hard work?" I yelled, my heart pounding in my chest. Her reaction was everything I feared and expected. She turned cold, scoffing at my anger. "It's not what it looks like," she insisted, her voice rising. "You're just jumping to conclusions. You're always so paranoid." I couldn't believe the audacity of her lies. I was furious, and yet, deep down, I felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about how I had let myself be blind to the signs for so long. The confrontation lasted for what felt like hours, each second heavy with tension. I was torn between the rage boiling inside me and the deep sadness of realizing the love I thought we had was built on deception. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something, but instead, all I could do was stand there, feeling utterly helpless. As the dust settled, I knew I had two choices. I could try to salvage what was left of our marriage, or I could take a different route, one that would pave the way for revenge. And trust me, as I stared at her, I was leaning toward the latter. This was just the beginning of my story, and little did she know, I was about to embark on a journey that would change everything. I would build my brand, overshadow Richard, and show her just how wrong she was about us. But first, I had to let the emotional impact of the betrayal wash over me, something I was not yet ready to face. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur of emotion. I spent every waking moment grappling with the weight of betrayal. I would find myself staring blankly at walls, lost in thoughts about how Emily could do this to us. I had always considered myself a rational person, but this situation was turning me into a whirlwind of anger and hurt. I was angry at her for the infidelity, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, and mostly just angry at the universe for putting me in this position. Emily tried to act like nothing had changed, but the atmosphere in the house was thick with tension. She would come home, and if I looked her way, she would feign interest in her phone or complain about work. I could tell she was on edge, uncertain of how to navigate our once happy home, which now felt more like a battlefield. Every night I tossed and turned, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. The idea started to manifest itself more clearly as I contemplated my own future. Why should I be the one left feeling miserable? Why should Richard, the designer who had tempted my wife, get away with this? I wanted to show them both what real success looked like, and more importantly, I wanted Emily to regret her choices. It wasn't long before the idea hit me. I would launch my own fashion brand. I had always been interested in fashion, more than just the casual observer. I had a creative side that I never fully explored. I spent countless hours sketching designs and imagining what my brand could look like. The thrill of vengeance morphed into something more productive as I began to put together a plan. I started researching everything I could about the fashion industry: fabric types, production processes, marketing strategies. I watched videos, read articles, and even took a few online courses. The more I learned, the more excited I became. I felt like I was reclaiming a part of myself. I wasn't just the betrayed husband anymore. I was becoming an entrepreneur. Of course, I kept this all under wraps. Emily had no idea what I was up to. I would leave the house early in the mornings, telling her I was going for a run or hitting the gym. In reality, I was meeting with suppliers, designers, and even working on my own designs. It was exhilarating. The thrill of building something from the ground up was becoming my new obsession. One evening, I was sitting at my kitchen table, working on my designs, when Emily walked in. She glanced over my shoulder, trying to catch a glimpse of what I was doing. "What's that?" she asked, her tone casual, but with a hint of curiosity. "Just some ideas I've been working on," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I didn't want her to know how serious I was about this. "You wouldn't be interested." She leaned closer, her skepticism palpable. "You've never mentioned anything like this before. Are you really thinking of starting your own brand?" "Maybe," I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Just something to keep me busy." The truth was, I was pouring my heart and soul into this project, and it was helping my emotional recovery. The more I focused on my brand, the less time I spent wallowing in sadness over the affair. I was determined to make this work, not only to prove a point to Emily and Richard, but also to reclaim my self-worth. As the weeks passed, I finalized my brand name, Jake's Threads. It felt right. It was personal, and it embodied the journey of transformation I was undergoing. I started working on a collection that was edgy, stylish, and most importantly, something that would stand out in a crowded market dominated by established labels, including Richard's. The pivotal moment came when I decided to launch my brand during an upcoming local fashion show. I had networked with a few local boutiques and even secured a small spot in the show. It was my chance to present my work to the world and to Emily. I imagined her watching from the audience, her jaw dropping as she realized what I had accomplished without her. The closer the show came, the more excited and nervous I became. I even started to feel a bit of confidence returning. I spent long nights working on the final touches for my collection, and every stitch felt like a piece of my heart coming back to life. I had transformed from a heartbroken husband to a man on a mission. As the day of the fashion show approached, I could feel the buzz in the air, both excitement and apprehension. It was time to step into the spotlight, both literally and metaphorically. I was ready to show Emily what she had let slip through her fingers and to prove to myself that I could rise from the ashes of betrayal. But I still had one more step to take. I needed to confront her again before the show. This time, it wouldn't just be about the affair. It would be about the new me, the confident, driven man I was becoming. I needed her to understand that I was done being the victim in this story. I was ready to take control of my life, and that was just the beginning. The days leading up to the fashion show were a whirlwind of activity. I had my designs finalized, my models lined up, and the venue booked. Everything was falling into place, but I still felt the ghost of Emily's affair lingering in the back of my mind. I knew I couldn't enter this new chapter without having one last serious conversation with her. I needed closure, and I wanted her to understand the transformation I was undergoing, not just for the sake of my pride, but for my mental health. The night before the show, I decided to confront her one last time. It felt like there was a storm brewing inside me, and I couldn't hold it back any longer. As Emily wandered into the living room that evening, I could see her trying to act nonchalant, but I knew better. She was anxious. She could sense the tension in air. "Jake, are you okay?" she asked, her brows furrowing with concern that felt insincere. "Actually, I'm not," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk." "About what?" she replied, crossing her arms defensively. I could see her preparing for the worst. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "About us, about what you did with Richard." Her expression hardened, and I could see the defensive walls go up. "I told you I didn't mean anything by it. You're blowing this out of proportion." "No, Emily, I'm not," I interrupted, refusing to let her dismiss my feelings again. "You think it's easy for me to just forget that you cheated on me, that you threw everything we built together away for a fling. I'm over that now because I'm moving forward." She looked taken aback, perhaps expecting me to plead with her or ask for forgiveness. But that wasn't happening. I continued, "I'm launching my own fashion brand tomorrow at the local show. I've been working my ass off, and I want you to know that I've turned the pain into something positive." Her eyes widened in shock, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of triumph. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment to show her I was no longer the weak husband she could manipulate. "You think I care about that?" She snapped back, masking her surprise with anger. "You think this is going to change anything?" "It changes everything, Emily. It means I'm taking control of my life." I took a step closer, my heart racing. "I'm not going to be the man who sits back and lets you walk all over him. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine." I could see her wrestling with her emotions. One minute she looked furious, the next it was as if she was about to cry. "Do you really think you can outdo Richard? He's a designer for a reason." "Maybe so," I said, keeping my composure. "But I'm not doing this for him or to compete with him. I'm doing this for me. I want to show you and myself that I'm more than just your husband. I'm someone who can create, who can succeed." Her expression shifted from rage to one of disbelief, as if she was finally grasping the reality of our situation. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" she finally said, her voice softer. "Dead serious. And tomorrow everyone will see what I'm capable of." I turned to leave the room, but then I paused. "I don't need you to be a part of this anymore. I just wanted you to know that I'm not broken. I'm rising stronger from this." As I walked away, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I had finally confronted Emily, not as a victim, but as a man who was reclaiming his power. The tension had shifted, and I felt ready to take on the world. The following day, the fashion show arrived. I was a bundle of nerves and excitement as I got ready backstage. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, and to finally see my vision come to life was surreal. The hustle and bustle of the backstage area only fueled my adrenaline. Models were getting their hair and makeup done, and I was overseeing the final touches on the outfit I had designed. I could hear the chatter and laughter around me, but all I could focus on was my collection, my revenge wrapped in fabric and thread. As the show began, I peered out from backstage, watching the audience fill the seats. I spotted familiar faces, friends, acquaintances, and even some people I had once considered rivals. But what caught my eye was a figure sitting near the front row, Emily. She looked stunning but slightly out of place, as if she didn't belong in the world I was about to introduce. When it was finally time for my segment, I took a deep breath and stepped out. The lights were bright and the music was pumping, but all I could feel was the energy of the moment. My models strutted down the runway, showcasing my designs, pieces that embodied my journey, my pain, and my newfound strength. Each outfit was bold and unique, and as the crowd erupted in applause, I felt a sense of pride coursing through me. But it wasn't just about the applause or the acclaim. It was about standing in front of everyone, including Emily, and showing her what she had lost. As my final model walked down the runway, I spotted Emily's expression. It was a mix of shock and realization. She was witnessing the transformation firsthand, and in that moment I knew I had made my point. The show concluded, and I could hardly contain my excitement. The buzz from the crowd was electric, and I felt a wave of fulfillment wash over me. I had not only created something beautiful, but had also proven to myself that I was capable of greatness. As I made my way back to the backstage area, I couldn't help but think about what came next. I had built something out of the ashes of my pain, and now it was time to solidify my new identity. Emily had a choice to make, but I was no longer waiting around for her decision. I would continue to rise, whether she was in my life or not. The next phase of my life was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The applause from the audience faded, but the adrenaline coursed through me like a live wire. I had just executed a plan that had been months in the making, and the feeling was intoxicating. As I stood backstage, the models gathered around me, their smiles illuminated by the backstage lights. The buzz of excitement filled the air, but all I could focus on was Emily. I needed to talk to her. As I stepped away from the jubilation of the models and the crew, I found her near the entrance, still processing what she had just witnessed. Her eyes widened when she saw me approach, a mixture of awe and confusion etched across her face. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I had no idea you were capable of all this." "Yeah. Well, I'm full of surprises," I replied, trying to keep my tone light, but I could feel the tension hanging between us. "What do you think?" I was impressed. "Really," she stammered. "I didn't realize how talented you were." I couldn't help but feel a flicker of satisfaction. This was the reaction I had wanted. "It's not just talent, Emily, it's determination. You thought I would just sit back and let you destroy me without a fight." Her expression shifted, transitioning from admiration to something more vulnerable. "I didn't think you were capable of this kind of change," she admitted, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "I always saw you as, well, the supportive husband, the one who would always be there for me." "Supportive doesn't mean I'm weak," I replied, the words tinged with the rawness of my emotions. "You made a choice, and so did I. I chose to build something for myself instead of wallowing in self-pity." I could see her grappling with the implications of my words. "I know I messed up, Jake. I didn't mean for it to go so far. Richard, it was stupid. A moment of weakness. A moment of weakness." I echoed, trying to keep my anger in check. "You don't get to downplay that. You didn't just slip up. You chose to betray me with him, and now you want to act like it didn't mean anything." Tears threatened to spill from her eyes, and suddenly she looked smaller, more vulnerable. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I hurt you, and I know that. I didn't realize how much I needed to appreciate what we had until I saw you up there tonight, owning the stage." I took a deep breath, the anger bubbling inside me starting to give way to something else, sadness. "Do you really think it's that easy, that you can just apologize and everything will go back to how it was?" "I'm not asking for that," she rushed to say, her hands trembling as she spoke. I want a chance to make things right. I see now what I was missing. I can change. I can be better. Please let me prove it to you." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard, but my heart was still raw from the betrayal. "You had your chance, Emily. Made your decision. But I didn't understand the stakes," she insisted, desperation creeping into her tone. "I didn't realize it would push you to find yourself like this. You've become someone I don't even recognize, and I hate that I didn't see how extraordinary you could be." "Extraordinary," I scoffed, my emotions swirling. "You mean out of your reach, right? You wanted the glamorous life with the designer, but look where that got you." She took a step closer, her eyes locked on mine. "I was wrong to want that. I thought it was a dream, but I see now that I let it blind me to what was real. I see you, Jake. I see how hard you've worked, and it's more than anything Richard could ever offer." It was a lot to process, and I could feel my resolve wavering slightly. I had poured everything into building my brand, and now, standing in front of her, I was faced with the remnants of what we once had. But I also knew I couldn't go back to the way things used to be. Trust was shattered, and I had just begun to reclaim my life. "I did this for me," I said firmly, needing to reinforce that I was not stepping back into the shadows of her life. "I'm not doing this for you, and I won't be your backup plan. If you want to change, that's completely up to you, but I won't be waiting around to see if you mean it." The silence that followed was heavy. I could see the realization settling in for her, that things really had changed. I was no longer the man she could manipulate. I was building my own path, and that path did necessarily include her. "Just think about it, okay?" she said finally, her voice softening. I want to be a part of your life if you'll let me. I considered her words carefully. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also recognized the potential for deceit. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. I'll think about it, Emily. But right now, I need to focus on my brand and moving forward. You need to show me you're serious about wanting to be in my life, but it will take time. Time is all I need, she said, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. As I watched her walk away, I felt an odd mixture of emotions, relief, anger, and the tiniest hint of hope. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I recognized that I was no longer chained to the past. I had a future to build, whether it included Emily or not. The next day was filled with media coverage and excitement as I received feedback from the show. People were buzzing about Jake's threads, and I knew that I was finally on the brink of something big. As I basked in the aftermath of my success, I realized that my journey was just beginning. I was determined to make a name for myself, not just as Emily's husband, but as Jake, the designer. And while Emily had expressed her desire to change, I knew I had to remain focused on my goals. I had worked too hard to let anything, or anyone, distract me from my mission. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready to face it head-on. The real challenge would be deciding how much I was willing to let her back into my life. In the weeks that followed the fashion show, things began to take on a new rhythm. Jake's Threads was gaining traction, and I was pouring everything I had into making it a success. The response from the audience had been overwhelmingly positive, and I was starting to get inquiries from boutiques interested in carrying my designs. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from potential partners and clients. It felt incredible to finally be in control of my destiny. Emily, on the other hand, was still a constant presence in my life, but she was no longer my priority. After our conversation at the show, she had reached out several times trying to reconnect, but I was cautious. I had made it clear that I needed time, and I intended to stick to that. I didn't want to fall back into old habits or old wounds. I was determined to keep my focus on my brand and my own growth. That said, I couldn't completely shut her out. Emily persisted in her attempts to show me she was serious about changing. She would send me texts, often filled with compliments about my work, and even brought me coffee on days when she knew I was working late. There were moments when I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the supportive partner who believed in me, but the shadows of betrayal loomed large. One evening I was working late in my home office, surrounded by sketches and fabric swatches, when Emily knocked on the door. I hesitated before letting her in, my mind racing with thoughts of what she might say. When I finally opened the door, she entered with a bright smile, holding a small gift bag. "Hey, I brought you something," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I raised an eyebrow, unsure of how. "Spawned, what's this?" "Just a little something to celebrate your success," she replied, pulling out a designer notebook. "I thought you could use it to jot down ideas for your next collection." I couldn't help but feel a bit touched, but I also felt a familiar pang of distrust. "Thanks, but you didn't have to do this." She stepped closer, her expression earnest. "I wanted to. I know I messed up, and I'm trying to show you that I'm serious about being here for you. I want to support you, Jake. I want to be part of your journey." As I took the notebook from her, I found myself at a crossroads. She was reaching out, and part of me wanted to believe her. But could I really trust her again? Every time I felt the urge to let her back in, memories of her betrayal would flood my mind, reminding me of how easily she had tossed aside our life together. "I appreciate it, Emily," I said cautiously, "but I need you to understand that trust doesn't come easy. It's not something you can just win back with gifts or sweet words." "I know," she said, her voice steady. "I'm willing to put in the work. I want to rebuild that trust one step at a time. Let me show you how much I've changed." As I looked into her eyes, I saw a glimmer of sincerity, but I also wondered if this was just another attempt to manipulate me. I had to tread carefully. "Okay," I finally said, feeling the weight of my decision. "But it's going to take time. I can't just forget what happened." "I understand," she said, her relief palpable. "I just hope you'll let me show you that I can be the partner you deserve." With that, we began to navigate this new dynamic. Emily would come by occasionally, sometimes bringing lunch or helping me with marketing ideas. As she immersed herself in my world, I found that I was gradually letting my guard down. Our conversations became more genuine, and I started to see the woman I had fallen for in a new light, one that was not overshadowed by betrayal. But just as things seemed to be improving, the past had a way of rearing its ugly head. I was attending a local fashion event when I ran into Richard. He was mingling with some influencers, his charm radiating as he basked in the attention. The moment our eyes met, I felt a surge of anger. This man had destroyed my marriage, and I was not about to let him think he had won. As I turned to walk away, I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Jake, good to see you," Richard exclaimed, feigning enthusiasm. "I heard your show was a hit. Congrats." "Thanks, but I'm not interested in your platitudes, Richard," I replied, my voice cold. "You're the last person I want to hear from." He raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Come on, man, I didn't mean to cause any trouble." "Trouble, you know exactly what you did," I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You think you can just waltz back into my life and pretend like everything's okay?" Richard's smile faded, replaced with a cocky smirk. "I didn't do anything wrong, Jake. Emily made her own choices. If she wanted me, enough." I interrupted, my voice rising. "You're a pathetic excuse for a man, and you think you can just take whatever you want without consequences. But let me tell you something. I'm not the man you once knew. I'm building something great, and you're nothing but a footnote in my story." The tension between us was electric, and I could see Richard's facade cracking. I knew I had struck a nerve. The truth was, I was no longer afraid of him. I had risen from the ashes, and I was determined to make it clear that he would not define my future. As I walked away, I felt an exhilarating rush of empowerment. I had faced Richard, and I had stood my ground. I was no longer just the betrayed husband. I was Jake, a designer with a vision and a future. When I returned home that night, I found Emily waiting for me. I could see the concern etched on her face. "Jake, are you okay? I saw you talking to Richard." "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, still buzzing from the encounter. "I just had to remind him that he doesn't have any hold over me anymore." "Good," she said, her eyes brightening. "You deserve to stand up for yourself." "I'm learning that," I said softly, "and it feels good to finally take control." In that moment, I realized that I was no longer just fighting for my brand. I was also fighting for my own self-worth. The road ahead would still be challenging, especially with Emily trying to rebuild our relationship. But I was ready to face whatever came my way, one step at a time. The future was mine to define, and I wasn't about to let anyone, especially Richard, take that away from me again. As the weeks turned into months, Jake's threads continued to flourish. The buzz from my debut show had sparked interest far beyond what I had anticipated. I was receiving invitations to showcase my work at various events, and I had even started collaborating with other local designers. The adrenaline of success was intoxicating, and I felt more alive than I had in years. Still, the journey had its share of bumps. My relationship with Emily was a delicate dance. She seemed genuinely committed to making amends, often going out of her way to support me. She volunteered to help organize my next collection launch, and even though I was apprehensive, I allowed her in. I was still cautious, but I wanted to see if she could truly change and if we could find a way back to each other. One evening, as we worked late in my studio, I could see the passion in her eyes as she discussed potential themes for my next collection. "What if we drew inspiration from your journey?" she suggested, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "It could be a reflection of resilience and rebirth, everything you've gone through." I paused, considering her idea. "That's interesting, but are you sure you want to be involved in this? I don't want to mix business with personal feelings." Emily nodded, her expression earnest. "I get that, but I want to be part of your life, your whole life. I want to prove to you that I can be a partner who supports you, not someone who tears you down." There was something genuine in her voice, and for the first time in a long while, I felt my defenses begin to soften. Maybe we could find a way to rebuild what we had lost. As we worked together on the collection, I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who inspired me rather than broke me. She poured herself into the project, and I found that I was enjoying her presence again. We would share laughs and ideas, and slowly I was allowing myself to believe that it was possible to create something beautiful together. One night, after a particularly productive session, we sat down to take a break. I looked at her, searching her eyes for any hint of insincerity. Emily, I want to be clear. I'm still figuring out how to trust you again. It's not going to be easy. I know, she replied, her voice soft but steady, but I'm willing to work for it. I've learned from my mistakes, and I want to prove that I can be the partner you deserve. I've realized that success isn't just about me or what I want, it's about us. Her words lingered in the air, and I could feel the tension easing just a bit. Maybe we could redefine our relationship, but I knew it would take time. Trust needed to be rebuilt, and I was willing to embark on that journey slowly. As the launch date for the new collection approached, I was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Emily was by my side every step of the way, offering her insights and support. The collection came together beautifully, and I was proud of what we had created. On the night of the launch, the venue was buzzing with energy. Friends, family, and fashion enthusiasts gathered to witness the unveiling of my latest work. As I stood backstage, I felt a rush of emotions. This was a celebration of my hard work, my resilience, and in a way the potential for a second chance with Emily. When it was time to present the collection, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the runway. The lights were blinding, but as I looked out at the crowd, I spotted familiar faces, my closest friends who had supported me through this journey, and there was Emily, standing among them, her eyes shining with pride. The models strutted down the runway, showcasing our designs, each piece embodying the themes of resilience and rebirth. Each outfit was a testament to my journey, and as the applause washed over me, I felt a sense of accomplishment that transcended the fashion industry. I had fought through the darkness, and now I was standing in the light. After the show, as I mingled with guests and received compliments, I found Emily waiting for me in the corner, her expression filled with excitement. "You were incredible, Jake. The collection was stunning." "Thanks," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I couldn't have done it without you." She stepped closer, her eyes glistening. "I'm glad you let me be a part of this. It means more to me than you know." As we celebrated together, I saw the potential for something new. The journey to rebuild trust was still ahead, but I felt hopeful. In that moment, I realized that while we had both made mistakes, it was also an opportunity for growth for both of us. Later that evening, as the crowd began to dwindle, I found a quiet moment with Emily. "I know we've been through a lot, and I can't promise that things will be perfect," I said, my heart pounding. "But I'm willing to try. I want to see where this goes." She smiled, her eyes lighting up. "So do I. I want to build something lasting. I believe we can do it together." With a cautious optimism, I took her hand, feeling a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to navigate it together. I had risen from the ashes, not just as a designer, but as a person who had learned the value of resilience and self-worth. Whatever the future held, I was ready to embrace it, knowing that I had the power to define my own path, and perhaps, just perhaps, we could find our way back to each other. In the end, this was more than just about revenge or reclaiming my identity. It was about building a life filled with authenticity, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.